Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jai. Yeah. Okay. So we are reading from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is entitled "The Creation of the Creation of the Fourth Order." Okay. Now we are on chapter 21, which is entitled "Instructions by Maharaj Prithu," and we're going to read text 42 today. But before we begin, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. No, forgive me. My nose is running a little bit this morning, so if you hear me sniffling, that's what that is. I think I'll be okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go ahead and read the Sanskrit and proceed from there. We're on text 42. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone know the meter here? Alright. Yad Brahmanityam Virajam Sanatanam Shraddha Tapo Mangala Mona Samyamai Samadhina Bibrati Harta Driste Yatredam Adarsha Iva Pasyate Yad Brahmanityam Virajam Sanatanam Shraddha Tapo Mangala Mona Samyamai Samadhina Bibrati Harta Dristaye Yatredam Adarsha Iva pasyate. Tricky word. Anyone like to chant? Okay, so we'll do word by word translation. Should I just read them, or do you guys repeat? Okay, so I'll just go ahead and read them then. Yat, that which, Brahma, the Brahminical culture, Nityam, eternally, Virajam, without contamination, Sanatanam, without beginning, Shraddha, faith, Tapa, austerity, Mangala, auspicious, Mona, silence, Samyamai, controlling the mind and senses, Samadhina, with full concentration, Bibrati, illuminates, Ha, as he did it, Artha, the real purpose of the Vedas, Dristaye, for the purpose of finding out, Yatra, wherein, Idam, all this, Adarshe, in a mirror, Eva, like, Avabhasate, manifests. Translation. In the Brahminical culture, a Brahmana's transcendental position is eternally maintained because of the injunctions of the Vedas. Because the injunctions of the Vedas are accepted with faith, austerity, scriptural conclusions, full sense and mind control, and meditation. In this way, the real goal of life is illuminated, just as one's face is fully reflected in a clear mirror. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Since it is described in the previous verse that feeding a living Brahmana is more effective than offering oblations and a fire sacrifice, in this verse it is now clearly described what Brahmanism is and who a Brahmana is. In the age of Kali, taking advantage of the fact that by feeding a Brahmana one obtains a more effective result than by performing sacrifices, a class of men with no Brahminical qualifications claim the eating privilege known as Brahma Bhojana, simply on the basis of their birth in Brahmana families. In order to distinguish this class of men from the real Brahmanas, Maharaj Prithu is giving an exact description of a Brahmana and the Brahminical culture. One should not take advantage of his position simply to live like a fire without light. A Brahmana must be fully conversant with the Vedic conclusion, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedesh Jasarver Aham Eva Vedya, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. The Vedic conclusion, the ultimate understanding, or Vedanta understanding, is knowledge of Krishna. Actually, that is a fact, because simply by understanding Krishna as he is, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, Jamma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yoveti Tatvidaha, one becomes a perfect Brahmana. The Brahmana who knows Krishna perfectly well is always in a transcendental position. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vibicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatitaitam brahma bhuyaya kopate. Translation: one who engages in full devotional service and who does not fall down in any circumstance at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Therefore, a devotee of Lord Krishna is actually a perfect Brahmana. His situation is transcendental, and he is free from the 4 defects of conditional life, which are the tendencies to commit mistakes, to be illusioned, to cheat, and to possess imperfect senses. A perfect Vaishnava, or Krishna-conscious person, is always in this transcendental position because he speaks according to Krishna and his representative. Because Vaishnavas speak according to the tune of exactly according to the tune of Krishna, whatever they say is free from these 4 defects. For example, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that everyone should always think of him, everyone should become his devotee, offer him obeisances and worship him, and ultimately everyone should surrender unto him. These devotional activities are transcendental and free from mistakes, illusion, cheating, and imperfection. Therefore, anyone who is a sincere devotee of Lord Krishna, and who preaches this cult, speaking only on the basis of Krishna's instructions, is understood to be Vairajam, or free from the defects of material contamination. A genuine Brahmana or Vaishnava therefore depends eternally on the conclusion of the Vedas or Vedic versions presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Only from the Vedic knowledge can we understand the actual position of the Absolute Truth, who, as described in the srimadbhagavatam, is manifested in 3 features, namely the impersonal Brahman, the localized Paramatma, and at last, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This knowledge is perfect from time immemorial, and the Brahminical or Vaishnava culture depends on this principle eternally. One should therefore study the Vedas with faith, not only for one's personal knowledge, but for the sake of spreading this knowledge and these activities through real faith in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Vedas. Okay. The word Mangala, auspicious, in this verse is also very significant. Srila Sridhar Swami quotes that to do what is good and to reject what is not good is called Mangala, or auspicious. To do what is good means to accept everything favorable for the discharge of devotional service, and to reject what is not good means to reject everything not favorable for discharging devotional service. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we accept this principle by rejecting 4 prohibited items, namely illicit sex life, intoxication, gambling, and flesh eating, and accepting the daily chanting of at least 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and daily meditation at least 3 times a day by chanting the Gayatri Mantra. In this way, one can keep his Brahminical culture and spiritual strength intact. By following these principles of devotional service strictly, chanting 24 hours a day the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one makes positive progress in spiritual life, and ultimately becomes fit to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Completely fit to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Because the ultimate goal of studying or understanding the Vedic knowledge is to find Krishna, one who follows the Vedic principles as described above can from the very beginning see all the features of Lord Krishna, the Absolute Truth, very distinctly, as one can see one's own face completely reflected in a clear mirror. The conclusion is, therefore, that a Brahmana does not become a Brahmana simply because he is a living entity or is born in a Brahmana family. He must possess all the qualities mentioned in the Shastras and practice the Brahminical principles in his life. Thus, he ultimately becomes a fully Krishna-conscious person and can understand what Krishna is. How a devotee continuously sees Krishna face to face within his heart is described in Brahma Samhita chapter 5, text 38, as follows. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena sankta sadaiva hirdeshu vilochananti yam shama sundaram achinta guna swarupam govindamari pusham tamaham bhajami. The devotee, by development of pure love of Krishna, constantly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Shama Sundar, within his heart. That is the perfectional stage of Brahminical culture. Yeah, sorry, I'm spacing. Can I get that? Do you think I can get that tissue, if possible? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Om Jnanat Mandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chakshu Mitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master is opening my eyes to the torchlight of knowledge. Offer my respectful obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I'll go ahead and just read the translation again here. In the Brahminical culture, a Brahmana's transcendental position is eternally eternally maintained, because the injunctions of the Vedas are accepted with faith, austerity, scriptural conclusions, full sense and mind control, and meditation. In this way, the real goal of life is illuminated, just as one's face is fully reflected in a clear mirror. Thank you very much, Guru. This is the budget tissue here, huh? Okay. Okay. So quite a long purport here, but quite a few points made here. One thing that stuck out to me here is a theme that comes up very much commonly in Prabhupada's writings, that of what is a Brahmana. That a Brahmana is not simply someone who takes birth in a Brahmana family, but one who actually imbibes the qualities of the Brahmanas. Srila Prabhupada here gives the example of sometimes people, probably most likely in India, could be other places, but India is traditionally where some remnants of culture are there. And people born in these Brahmana families understand that from the Shastras that by being Brahmanas, if they actually have that qualification, they are entitled, in one sense, to take the opportunity of Brahmana Bhojana, where people feed them very nicely, and then those people get spiritual benefit. But the thing is, these Brahmanas, they're more interested in they're only doing the half of the Brahmana job. I think it was quoted yesterday that Brahmana eats for the Lord, on behalf of the Lord, but he has to speak on behalf of the Lord. So both things has to be there. And in order to speak about the Supreme Lord, one actually needs to understand the Vedic conclusion. So that's a very important part of the Brahminical culture, actually understanding the Shastras. Even there may be so many Brahmanas, they could speak so many things, but if it's not according to the Shastras, it has no significance, it has no meaning. So, in order to actually be a Brahmana, one has to must become conversant in the science of Krishna. So, Another point that is made here that's quite important is that by speaking the message of Krishna, one becomes free from the four defects. Or it should be said that in doing so, his speech is free from the four defects. Not that one necessarily becomes free from the four defects, but that speech at the time is free from the four defects. So this is very important in so much that whatever we come up with simply by our mental concoction, it is a little bit is imperfect. It is not actually going to benefit people in the same way that the words that Shastra will. So by speaking Krishna's words, we can actually give people benefit. Now, one should not become puffed up and think now that I am a learned brahmana, now that I'm a learned person, now that so many people are listening to me, I can just start spouting my own philosophy. I can share my realizations that are contradictory towards Shastra. If your realizations are contradictory towards Shastra, they're simply more like mental concoctions. So that's an important thing there, that in Krishna consciousness we have Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and all these should be in line. Another important point here is this idea of this word mangala. Sridhar Swami is explaining it means to do what is good and to reject what is not good. So we can understand from the Krishna conscious perspective, anything that is favorable for our practicing and spreading Krishna consciousness is we should accept. Anything which is not favorable for our practicing and spreading Krishna consciousness, we should reject. So this is there's some things that are pretty more obvious. Srila Prabhupada here points out in the purport the four regulative principles. These are in one sense some of the basic guidelines pointed out by Srila Prabhupada. Very important, and even they shouldn't be what's the word I'm looking for? The significance of these things shouldn't be understated, because so many, even though as practicing devotees we may think these are somewhat easy, actually by avoiding these we avoid so much sinful activity, and so many people actually are not able to keep this up, to keep up these four regulative principles. So actually that is a very significant thing to do. But also we shouldn't become complacent, and there's so many other things that we could learn that are favorable and not favorable for our Krishna consciousness, and that might be a learning process. It's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't stay up till midnight, okay, we got to get up at 4 a.m. But Srila Prabhupada didn't make it, he was always said go to Mangal Arti, but he didn't. But it was, I don't know if it's like ever a rule ever, it's like, okay, you have to go to bed before 12. It's understood that if you want to get up at 4, you should do that. But, the rule is get up for Mangal Arti. So, eventually you'll figure out, okay, maybe I need to go to bed early. Maybe I shouldn't eat too much or whatever. Whatever it is that works for you. You're going to have to figure out these things in Krishna consciousness. Okay, I know it just went away here. Okay, so another point that's made here, just a quick one sentence in the purport here. Prabhupada says, one should therefore study the Vedas with faith, not only for one's personal knowledge, but for the sake of spreading this knowledge and these activities through real faith in the words of the Supreme Personality Godhead and the Vedas. So this verse this sentence kind of really reflects Prabhupada's mood, in that the Krishna consciousness movement is not simply for our own learning and salvation, one might say, but it's for spreading to others. Earlier in the purport, Prabhupada gives the example of a fire without light. So a brahmana who doesn't have the knowledge and doesn't speak the knowledge, he's like a fire without light. Looks very nice, Brahmana a nice pukka chadar and, tilak and whatever, but if he doesn't actually perform the functions of a Brahmana, and he doesn't actually enlighten people in the Vedic knowledge, then he's like a fire without light. Especially because traditionally in the Vedic culture, the Brahmanas, they didn't have any sort of income. Just like many of the monks here. They are maintained by those who are working in the outs, who have some kind of profession, either their own business or working for somebody else, or the government, Kshatriyas. So the Brahmanas, because they are, in one sense, reaping the results of the work of other people, in one sense, that they have a serious responsibility to, because they have so much time to engage in their spiritual life and reading the Shastras, they have a responsibility in giving that to other people. So if a Brahmana isn't doing that, he's basically simply eating and sleeping, in one sense. Not so good. So kind of circle back a little bit to beginning of the purport and the way Srila Prabhupada concludes it a little bit here, is that a Brahmana must have the qualities of a Brahmana, and he must have the activities of a Brahmana. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, chapter 4, text 13. Let's see if I can pull up the verse here. Bookmarked it. There's often quoted Varnashram verse. Chatur Varnam Mayastristam Guna Karma Vibhagasa Tasya Kartaram Apimam Vidhi Akartam Avyayam. And what's important in this verse is this Guna Karma Vibhagasa. So the Varnashram system is divided in terms of guna, quality, and karma, of work. So a Brahmana has to have these things. Srila Prabhupada would often mention, doesn't say birth here. So one should look to this verse actually to see what qualities a Brahmana should have. See, injunctions of Veda accepted with faith. They have to be austere. They have to know the scriptural conclusions, full sense and mind control, meditation. So these are what should be looked for in a Brahmana. And also what someone might know, there's like 6 activities of a Brahmana. It's like performing sacrifices for oneself, maybe for others, teaching. If you help me, I won't know here.
Giving charity and accepting charity. Those are the 6. Yajna is worship and teaching sacrifice. The other is studying Shruti, teaching. And the other is charity and accepting and giving charity.
So Brahmana has these activities, and if we have these guidelines, then the Brahmana can learn how he should work. And then, just touching on the last sentence of this verse here, it said, "In this way, the real goal of life is illuminated, just as one's face is fully reflected in a clear mirror." So, this is something that I actually like, something that reminds me of something Tirtha Maharaj would say. He would often speak about the goal of life versus goals in life. Okay, even as a devotee, I might have like some short-term goals, like, okay, I need a van for the temple. Okay, like I want to chant 18 rounds a day instead of 16, whatever, all these things, But what is the goal of life? That's become pure devotee of Krishna. But if one doesn't keep the Shastra in mind, then the goal of life can be obscured. So many people out there who don't know the Shastra, they are very much confused about the goal of life. It's like I was just in New Zealand for a few days, and Dave and Rita Maharaj there were showing a video. Just, it's not the Hare Krishna video, it's just some video made by, I don't know who made it. But anyways, I was showing this UCSD professor. Here we have they're showing a UCSD professor, UC SanDiego right here. Kind of funny how that worked out. But anyways, he had studied philosophy, all that, he was a philosophy professor there, had written many books about philosophy, and he was getting into his 90s, quite, one could say he's very fortunate to have lived that long in one sense. But anyways, he was married for quite some time, happy marriage, kids, whatever, and wife, in the course of time, passed away. And so he's just sort of living out his days, 90 years old now. And it's kind of sad because you see him kind of just going throughout his day, and really he's kind of without his wife, and kind of, he doesn't have his job anymore or whatever. And he's just kind of living out his days. And he's kind of thinking, he says he sometimes wakes up and he's just like, what's the point of all this? What am I doing? And here's this philosopher, he studied and taught philosophy, all this stuff, and he's just totally bewildered. He doesn't even really understand why he even goes through the day. He's just doing. So because he doesn't have this Shastra to ground him, because he's not learned in this kind of stuff, he's completely bewildered actually to what the purpose of life is. So similarly, if one is not learned in the Shastra, one can be easily bewildered in what the goal of life and become confused. So one should keep on refreshing oneself with the Shastra, associating with devotees, hearing lectures, all this stuff, so one can actually keep the goal of mind in the forefront of one's life and not be bewildered by all the things that can take place in one's life that can distract one. So many things that seem like big issues now, but if you take a step back, like what's it really all mean? Even we have this whole lifetime, and sometimes it's described as like just a blip in the cosmic time scale. What to speak of, we don't even remember the issues of, like, we might not even remember the problems we had last week. What to speak of, like, So one should really try to keep the goal of life in the forefront of one's mind, so one can understand what is important. So I'm going to stop there. Anyone has any questions or comments? Not to kirtans?
Okay. So yeah, in the purport, Prabhupada uses the word Brahmanism, and a lot of times, like, I'll meet while I'm distributing books, like on a college campus, like I'll meet people like they took a religious studies class or something, and they have this whole misconception of, they think Varnashram, they translate it into the caste system, and Brahmanism is like some corrupt system. So I was just wondering how it if you can explain how it ended up like that and why people have that conception. So a lot of times those people don't take books because they think I'm trying to like push some like caste system weird corruption stuff.
All right. I'll address your first question first, and I'm also going to ask a curiosity question to you a little bit. So I can't say exactly because I wasn't in India, but from what I've understand and heard, some of it came actually due to the corruption of the Brahmanas themselves. First, it's like we see the example in Bhagavatam, how Shringi, even though the Brahmana is supposed to use their powers, you might say, for good, maintaining the peace, that kind of thing, Shringi gets angry and actually curses like basically one of the best rulers the planet has ever seen, to die for some like pretty insignificant thing when it comes down to it. So it starts with the corruption of the Brahminical class, that the Brahmanas, rather than, because the Brahmanas in one sense are at the top of society, they get quite a bit of perks in one sense. Like you read in Bhagavatam how the Brahmanas, or like Krishna's giving the Brahmanas like thousands and thousands of cows with like gold ornaments. He's giving them wives. He's giving them like houses, like so many things, you know. Like you imagine somebody getting that kind of gifts now, they'd be like, okay, then I'm going to get these things, and maybe I'll get some more of these things, and I'll just sit back and enjoy, you know. So perhaps that mentality creeped in a little bit, you know, that the Brahmanas, rather than using the advantages they have in service of Vishnu, and to facilitate their spreading Krishna consciousness, spreading the teachings of the Vedas, they simply use their position for enjoyment and exploitation. Then naturally people lose, because people can see that. Eventually, you know, people can see that the Brahmanas are becoming bogus. Then they don't respect the Brahmanas anymore. So they stop listening to maybe the remaining Brahmanas who maybe were speaking the truth, speaking the Vedas. So they lose respect for the Vedas, and yeah, so it doesn't go so well from there. So that maybe is some of the reason why it happened, but I can't give you a full explanation. Someone who knows the history of India better might know. Now, I'm just curious, how do these students know you're a Brahmana?
They don't. They usually ask that when they see the Bhagavad Gita. And they say, oh, I know this book we studied in religious studies class. It's the Hindu text, you know, such and such. Brahmanism, you know. So they learn that they don't learn anything. They learn misconceptions in the religious studies. Mm-hmm. So...
Well, that's interesting.
And I was also... You had a question? Okay. Can I... Okay. Yeah, I have another question here. I kind of expand.
H.D. Goswami, he taught at Florida somewhere.
Yeah.
And I listened to a lot of his lectures. And he goes into a lot of this, where the history of all this.
Yeah.
I mean, we could call the root of the history of this just seriously a lot of envy. But seems like Radha Krishna and one of them kind of came forward to represent Hinduism, but only a very small percentage of Hinduism, the Mayavad philosophy of Hinduism, quote unquote Hinduism, instead of the Vaishnava larger aspect of Hinduism. So that got into the school texts.
Did you say Rama Krishna?
Radha Krishna. Which one was it? I'm sorry. What was it? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Vivekananda. He was the most famous and influential.
Okay. Yeah. But there was somebody else. Sorry. And basically, that became like the standard, and a few other really weird things became part of the standard. And we can go back to when basically in Europe, forgot the guy's name, he was a smart guy, and he discovered the Vedas, apparently, you know, and you may have heard some of this. And so when that got back to Europe, wrote back, and he was a very influential and smart guy. He said, sorry, the Garden of Eden is not in Europe, it's in India. And all the super elites created a shockwave through Europe. And so all the super intellectual elites went down to India to check out the Vedas. And by the way, they interpreted the Srimad Bhagavatam more than all the other Puranas combined, because they found that to be the top. Anyway, so regarding all that, and everybody wanted to claim, use this as some sort of power, and so forth and so on. But anyways, it's a long story. In summary, it's just a little example. The British, I'm sure, had something to do with this as well, in corrupting and exploiting India. You know, if you can change things a bit and ruin the faith of the people, you can more easily exploit them. I've heard that as well. So maybe more details, exact details, if somebody wants to share, but that's like, in summary, according to H.D. Goswami and others.
You had another question, Ananta?
Yeah. Did you say something about that? Yeah, sometimes I've encountered people like that in books too, about, you saw the caste system, this and that. And I just tell them that you're a fool and you're a rascal, and no, I'm just joking. I just tell them that, if you look, okay, there's the Brahmins, there's the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Shudras, and okay, we have the working class, people are manual workers, right, laborers, and you have the teachers, like Hasyagramy, teacher, 4th grade teacher, whatever, 6th grade teacher. And then you have the Kshatriyas, the protectors, this, that. So, but if you look throughout the whole world, you have those different people with those inclinations, such as natural. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I created those, Chaturvanama, I created those. Now, if they don't believe in Krishna, okay, fine, but at least we can see around the world that those exist. And that, this whole system, of course there's a whole historical, how it degraded and all these different things, but it happens all the time. I mean, people, something starts off pure, and then humans get a hold of it, and then they, or people get a hold of it, and they completely mess it up. They distort it. And whatever it may be, it may start off as some wonderful organization, materially, you could say some, welfare organization that they're really helping people, materially or something. And then over time it just degrades, and you get a bunch of people who are, taking a bunch of the money or whatever it is, not helping people or something like that, cheating. So that's how it is with this varnashram system. Is that it was good? It's good, to start with, but over time it just became bad, in the sense that the Brahmins and the higher classes are just out and out exploiting the lower.
Yeah.
And like that with kings, now people, they don't like the idea of kings and queens, right? Because just exploitation. But at least as far as the Bhagavatam, there's so many good kings, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, so many great kings, not just good, transcendental kings, who, but, people like to just, over time it degrades and people focus on that, that's how it is. No, that's not how it is, that's how it is now, but it wasn't like that to begin with.
Yeah.
So, but you could try to explain it to them, but they still might not accept it.
Anybody else have a question? Because I have one. Okay. So I had this question yesterday, but it also applies to today's purport. So now I'll ask it. Yesterday I was describing how Krishna enjoys eating through the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas more than he does when we offer a sacrifice into the fire.
Yeah.
So most of us know that when in the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, when they were installing the deities, Prabhupada hired
the local Brahmanas.
Yeah, I don't know if he hired them, but he asked
invited
them to come.
Yeah.
And he said, actually, he was telling his devotees, actually, that's not necessary. Krishna will come into the deity just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, but we're doing this so the local people will have faith that, okay, this is legit.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, we take initiation and we have the fire sacrifice. Is that just to give credibility to ISKCON, for the outside world or Indians that might not understand that chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is sufficient, or even if we're offering food grains into the fire, according to the verse yesterday, it'd be better to offer it to a Vaishnava or a Brahmana. Yeah. And also I heard from one learned devotee one time that the fire sacrifices that we do in most temples aren't even really real fire sacrifices. It's just kind of according to the Vedic standard, it's like little kid stuff, just a little imitation, just to say, okay, we did a fire sacrifice. So I was wondering if you could comment
on that a little bit. Well, one thing I will say about the feeding the Brahmanas and the initiation, at least most initiations I've been at, it's not just the fire sacrifices, there's lots of feeding of the Brahmanas. I don't know about the initiations you've been to. No, but seriously though, like almost every initiation I've been in, there's prasadam served afterwards. So that's not included in there as well. And even in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada states that, I like to quote this, any sacrifice performed without the distribution of prasadam is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Yeah, I like that one. Anyways, so that is done. Now, as far as like why we do the sacrifice or whatever, I think that's a little bit beyond my scope. I could talk to you a little bit after this, maybe off the Vyasa-san, when I'm not speaking the absolute truth, or trying to speak the absolute truth here on the Vyasa-san, So,
One thing in Vrindavan, when Prabhupada was giving somebody sannyas,
yeah.
Prabhupada told the devotees, make a very elaborate ceremony, with flowers and fruits and decorations, invite everybody, make a very elaborate ceremony. And then devotees, oh, well, why Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, so he knows that something's going on. Means the person who's getting initiated, he knows that something's going on. So in other words, it leaves an impression. You may not need a big sacrifice and all these different things, but it leaves an impression. And that's part of the whole, these samskars, right? Ceremonies, they leave an impression in the mind, which you could say, okay, are they absolutely necessary? You could say on that about so many things, are so many things absolutely necessary. Like really, when it comes down to it, the only thing that's absolutely necessary, at least from one point of view, is that to go back to God, you just chant Hare Krishna, But you do so many other things. Like Prabhupada said, he said, actually we could just go under a tree in Mayapur and chant Hare Krishna, but because you can't do that, I have to rack my brain to come up with so many things, to keep you busy in Krishna service. So anyways, but yeah, that's there too, leaving an impression with the sacrifices. But it is there, like our Goswamis, they have, the Narada Pancharetra and all these different things, it is like bona fide, just like deity worship. It's not the process for this age, Kali Yuga, but we still engage in it. So like fire sacrifice, it's there within the literature of the Goswamis, and it's there, but it's not like the main thing. It's a side addition, you could say.
You have some other comment, Rameshwar?
Well, the thing in Vrindavan, hiring all the brahmanas, that wasn't necessary for as far as establishing the deities as bona fide. But my experience is there's always a sacrifice when we install deities.
Yeah, there is definitely
And this is not like just for child play. This is actually authorized stuff.
Yeah.
That Prabhupada writes later that somewhere that like if you just put a deity up there, a statue up there, it doesn't mean that Krishna is present in that statue.
Yeah.
So Prabhupada writes, when going through an authorized process with an authorized devotee of the Lord, then Krishna can agree to appear as the deity.
Yeah.
So that's the sacrifice. We see Prabhupada and other gurus installing deities in household homes and so forth and so on. It's an installation process.
Yeah.
And I would assume it's something's going on with the initiation ceremony as well. I don't know the details, but it's not like just, it's not just we're just going to do this external thing and there's nothing really going on here. I don't think it's like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a fair point. Anyone else? Otherwise, Mukunda.
This is actually about Anandakirtan Prabhu's question. My spiritual master mentioned 2 instances where people were asking Prabhupada about the caste system, and he gave 2 different replies. In one case, they were asking him about the caste system in kind of a, I can't remember which was which. One was asking in a kind of just like asking, and the other one was asking kind of like accusing, like, oh, I bet you're probably the top of the caste system, right? That's why you like the caste system, that's why you encourage this system and this philosophy. So in one of the situations, he was in a hospital, but I can't remember which was which. But in one of them, one lady asked him, "Oh, you're from India. Oh, so you're probably part of that higher caste. What's that highest caste?" And he's like, "Vaishnav." Yeah, Vaishnav. She said, "What's that highest class called?" He's like, "Vaishnav." But then in a different case, someone was trying to pin him down, kind of also trying to accuse him, like, "Oh yeah, you have Bhagavad Gita caste system. So what caste are you?" And he's like, or something like, "Oh, so you're first class? You're first class?" He's like, "Oh, I'm fifth class because I served the other four." Yeah. You heard that one?
Yeah, I think he was giving a lecture, like really kind of elaborating the 4 orders of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and after, I think it was to students. And after the lecture, someone challenged him, you know, "So you must think you're a first class man, you know?" And he's like, "No, I'm fifth class."
Yeah, Vaishnav served the other 4.
Yeah. So it's very nice. Any other final question, comment?